Good evening and thanks for tuning in. I'm Zinklea Samoa in for Gadi, Schwartz. Here are some of the stories we are watching tonight. A manhunt is still underway in Atlanta. Police are searching for a gunman who killed one person and injured 4 others.
It was a very heavy and quick response, and they asked us to stay put in the restaurant until the situation was under control.
El Paso declared a state of emergency at the border, and the scenes there are unimaginable.
What more do we need to say? Like, this is unsustainable. It's not normal. Please help us, and enough with the politics of it already.
And there's a black sperm donor shortage in the United States, and it's forcing families to make some really tough choices.
It definitely hurt my feelings that there was a lack of African-American donors. I didn't care if she came out purple. I just wanted to be a mom.
We're coming on the air with breaking news from Georgia, where we're waiting for the Atlanta Police Department to address the public any moment now. We're getting reports that the suspect has been captured. In the meantime, let's bring you up to speed. Honestly, it was a terrifying day for residents there in Georgia after gunfire erupted at a medical facility, killing at least 1 person and wounding 4. The shooting occurring in Midtown Atlanta in the neighborhood of West Peach Street. Take a listen first to responders from the Atlanta Police Department dispatch, talking to some of those first calls of an active shooter situation.
They're now advising the active shooter, person shot. They're advising a black male about 6 feet. He was wearing, it's going to be a black hoodie, between 20 and 25 years old. Deon Patterson is the suspect's name. Deon Patterson, black male, about 6 feet.
That suspect they're talking about has been identified as 24-year-old Deon Patterson. There has been a heavy police presence in the area all day. Patterson's last known location was Cobb County, Georgia. Authorities tell the public that he is considered armed and dangerous. Now, as for the victims, according to an area hospital, the 4 wounded women are in stable condition. So let's bring in NBC News correspondent Katie Beck to dive into this. Katie, I want to start with that breaking news that the suspect has been captured. What can you tell us?
Yeah, just minutes ago, Atlanta Police Department as well as Cobb County confirming that they have Deon Patterson in custody, the 24-year-old suspected shooter, today shutting down Midtown Atlanta, a full grid search for this individual after 5 people were shot, 1 life lost, and 4 others transported to the hospital. We know tonight at least 3 of those victims are still in critical condition. This is obviously a big relief for the Atlanta community, who has been sitting on pins and needles for most of the day, trying to figure out where this individual had escaped to. Police saying that after this shooting, he carjacked a vehicle very close to the hospital where he was here for an appointment with his mother. And then basically later this afternoon, they found that vehicle. They recovered it in Cobb County in a parking garage. They have been using a lot of surveillance video, we've been told, to trace his steps and determine his whereabouts, eventually sort of zeroing in that search, we believe, in Cobb County. They lifted a stay-in-place order here in the Midtown area mid-afternoon, and then it seemed as though all of the resources were put in Cobb County around where that abandoned vehicle was found. So now he is in police custody. We are awaiting a press conference. We're told around 8:15, the Atlanta Police Department will give more details about his apprehension and probably explain how it is exactly that they found him. But certainly here in the Atlanta metro community, a big sigh of relief to not know that this armed and dangerous person, as police have told folks, that has been on the loose for most of today, is now in police custody.
Yeah, Katie, I mean, I'm sure a huge sigh of release. I understand those first calls of an actor-shooter situation came at around 12:30 p.m. Then we saw those eerie scenes of an empty downtown Atlanta, Georgia, which is typically a very busy scene. And I know they said he was armed and dangerous for a time, telling people to shelter in place. So what is the community saying now that he has been captured? What are you hearing, or what were you hearing throughout the day?
I mean, I think the word of his capture is literally moments ago released, so I don't know if there's quite a reaction yet, but what I do know is that here in, as you described, in Metro, downtown, Midtown Atlanta, it was an eerie scene. There were full office buildings of people that were not allowed to leave. Traffic was shut down, and all the streets were occupied by SWAT vehicles with helicopters in the air searching for this person. So the intensity and the fear was real for a long period of time in Midtown Atlanta today. This is, a major sort of artery of the city. It's right next to the highway. So obviously traffic coming to a stop and people being held in their office buildings was a pretty dramatic scene for a pretty long period of time.
And Katie, of course, we have to talk about the victims. What do we know about their current status right now?
Well, as I said, there are 4 victims in the hospital. We know one of those victims is in stable condition. The other 3 are still in critical. All of them have endured a hardship today, going through surgeries and procedures. Several still have surgeries and procedures to go. They are recovering at Gadi Medical Center, which is in downtown Atlanta. We know that all of the victims were women as well. Beyond that, we have not learned too much about their identities. I think the focus now, especially for those trauma surgeons over at Gadi, is to get them in stable condition before they give us any more details.
All right, Katie, back in Atlanta, Georgia, thank you so much. Now I want to bring in Jim Kavanaugh. He's a retired ATF special agent in charge and an NBC News law enforcement analyst. So, Jim, first off, just what's your reaction to this capture?
Zing Clay, I'd say it's a good news on a bad news day for metropolitan Atlanta. I mean, at least this killer isn't at large, and we can be comfortable that he won't kill again.
No, absolutely. I wonder, and I'm sure many civilians are thinking this, how did this happen in terms of how the police were able to find him over the course of these, 8 hours? I know for a time there was that shelter in place that was then lifted. What goes into a search like this?
Well, you know, they tracked the car that he carjacked, which might have been picked up on video camera by some of the buildings there, because they were very confident of it. I think they hit it on a license plate reader going toward Cobb County. So they found the car in a parking garage, probably, again, cameras helping them, but he wasn't there. So then they would put a heavy dragnet in that area to see if he was out on foot. I would not be surprised that he was on foot in the area not far from where he ditched the car. You know, maybe trying to figure out what he was going to do next. Was he going to carjack somebody else? Where was he going to go? You know, he's a man with, nowhere to go. You know, his mother was with him when he did the shooting. He knows he can't go home. So he's trying to figure out himself, and a million thoughts racing through his head while, hundreds of officers and agents are scouring that area of Cobb County. And we'll see when they give us the press conference how they picked him up. But, he was likely wandering around or in some public place or a restaurant or somewhere, and they were able to locate him. They might have got a tip. A patrol officer might have seen him walking on the sidewalk. But nevertheless, I'm sure they had a heavy concentration in the area where that car was found. So it may be related to that lead.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as Katie said, so many residents in that area are just breathing a sigh of relief now. I wonder, Jim, what are you going to be listening for in this press conference? What do you think people should be keeping their ears peeled for in terms of what law enforcement is going to describe of their capture?
Yeah, I think they want to know how he was captured, how it got there. They want to know, just like we all do, how this shooting unfolded. Why did it happen? Did he say anything when he started shooting? Did the police think it was a planned event, Zing Clay? In other words, did he come there with a backpack full of magazines and this was a planned shooting, or did he somehow react while he was just carrying a handgun and started shooting everyone because he was upset or, just couldn't deal with whatever was being told him? Maybe he went there anticipating that he would be told some bad news, like that he was going to be put in a psychiatric hold or something, and he didn't want to do that. And if he was told that or something along that effect that he didn't like, then he pulled out the pistol and escaped. So something along that line, we'll be looking to see if that's what happened or, what was his thought process. And then, of course, the police can tell us maybe something what his mother said about, his state of mind. I'd say it's going to be somewhat limited because we're going to have a prosecution here for capital murder. So we're going to get some information, but it's not like when the suspect's deceased or commits suicide or he's killed by the police, because then the officers have a whole lot of leeway to give out more facts. And here they're going to give us some facts, but some of it's going to be guarded because of the pending prosecution.
Yeah, a lot to watch here. Jim Kavanaugh, thank you for that analysis. And of course, for everyone else, we'll bring you that press conference live later in this hour when it begins. I want to turn now, though, to another shooting that's made headlines today, this time in Texas. The gunman accused of killing his 5 neighbors is behind bars. Police say they found Francisco Oropesa hiding in a Texas home in a closet under some laundry. Investigators say an anonymous tip led to his arrest. He's been charged with 5 counts of murder. The judge said set his bail at $7.5 million. This all happened in the town of Cut and Shoot, Texas. You'll remember that for a while, officials did not know how far he had gone. Turns out Oropeza was just 15 miles from where the shooting actually happened. But he is not the only person in handcuffs. His wife was also arrested at that home. Her charge, hindering the apprehension of a known felon. Joining us now to talk more about this is NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson from Cold Spring, Texas, about 25 miles from where Oropeza was arrested. Priscilla, I know you've been on this for a while, and obviously this search went on for days. So how exactly did police eventually find and then arrest this man?
Yeah, Zinclay, it was a tip. The FBI says that a tip came into their tip line late yesterday evening, and that just a little over an hour after that tip came in, they were able to apprehend the suspect. We know that there were Department of Public Safety officers along with U.S. Marshals and a Border Patrol tactical team that went to that home and were allowed to search that home and ultimately found the suspect hiding in that closet under clothing. And we also have learned from officials that they did have eyes on the suspect earlier in the week. On Monday, there was a suspected sighting, and we saw law enforcement swarm to an area, and they said that they did see the suspect running on foot, but that they lost track of him. And obviously, they were able to track him back down thanks to that tip. And I spoke to neighbors in that community earlier today, and they said that they were shocked when they began to see the large law enforcement presence there and see them bring that suspect out in handcuffs, and just talking about the fear, knowing that that man was living right across the street, right next door to them, as many of them had kids at home, and you just never know. They said, one of them actually told me they'll be locking their doors from now on. Zinclay?
Locking their doors from now on. I mean, I hope some of that fear can turn to relief now. Priscilla, can you also tell us more about some of the other arrests and where exactly does the investigation go from here?
Yeah, so the biggest one is the wife, as officials have described her, of Oropeza, and that is Divimara Nava. And she was originally said to have been cooperating with the investigation, but is now charged with a felony for hindering apprehension of a known felon. And what we learned at her arraignment today is that apparently she said that Oropeza arrived at that home at around 1 a.m. Yesterday morning, that he showered, that she got him donuts, and that he asked her to deliver a message to his cousins to see if they would try to help him get to Mexico. We know that the cousins refused, and obviously later in that day he was apprehended. And so she is now in custody, being held on a $250,000 bond. We also know that there is another man, Domingo Castilla, that is also in custody here at the San Jacinto County Jail. Right now he is facing charges of possession of marijuana, but the district attorney says that he does expect to add additional charges there. He says that Castilla may have helped Oropeza to flee the scene the night that all of this carnage took place. Zinclay?
Yeah, a lot more information to figure out on this one. NBC's Priscilla Thompson, thank you so much. I want to turn now to some financial news. The Federal Reserve appears to be poised to wind down its interest rate hikes. That is despite the Fed announcing another rate hike of a 0.25 percentage point today. For perspective, that's the 10th consecutive increase since the start of last year. But Chairman Jerome Powell did indicate that the Fed may be pausing additional rate hikes at its future meetings.
In light of these uncertain headwinds, along with monetary policy restraint we've put in place, our future policy actions will depend on how events unfold.
All right, to dig into this, NBC's Brian Chung joins me now. Brian, busy day for you. I hope you get some sleep soon and some caffeine. Could this be the last rate hike we see for a while?
Yeah, well, the Fed Chairman Jay Powell was suggesting that it's possible. Now, of course, for the Federal Reserve, it's all going to depend on how the data comes in. For them, really, the big mission over the last few years has been taming inflation, right? The pain that we're all feeling at the store. And inflation has shown signs of improving. When you consider that it peaked at around 9% of an annual rate in June of last year, it's come down to 5%. So, okay, that sounds good. But the Fed's goal is 2%. So we're not quite there yet. That's the reason why they continue to hike interest rates. But again, they're trying to raise interest rates and slow an economy in a time where, look, we're facing a debt ceiling crisis.
Yeah.
and we're seeing tremors in the banking system. So a very precarious position the Fed is in right now.
I mean, you talk about tremors in the banking system. My brain goes to Wall Street. How is Wall Street responding to all of this turbulence and now this newest announcement of the rate hikes?
Yeah, well, I mean, for what it's worth, the Federal Reserve Chairman said it's possible that we can go into a mild recession. It's possible that the markets didn't like it that much, which is the reason why they ended the day in the red. But what's really interesting when you talk about Wall Street, Zinkley, is just the focus on bank stocks, because we saw First Republic fail just earlier this week. JP Morgan Chase had to come and save it. And now we're watching another bank. It's PacWest. It's a Los Angeles-based bank that there was news earlier that they might be seeking a buyer, which was a similar situation with First Republic. Shares of that stock after hours are down 50%. We'll have to watch that.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, so much there. And then I'm thinking about inflation. And, of course, that affects everything from credit cards, car loans, I mean, student debt, too. Is it going to get worse before it gets better?
Yeah, well, I mean, at least for right now, if what we heard from the Federal Reserve is going to hold true, which is that this could be the last rate hike of this cycle, then maybe it seems to point to a leveling out of the interest rates that you mentioned are really high, that all of us are facing, right? I mean, you take a look at the mortgage rates. Who wants to take a loan out right now for a 30-year fixed at, what, 7%?
Right.
Same thing with credit card payments, right? You're facing 20, 21, 22% interest rates. You really don't want to miss a payment in a situation like that. But again, if the Federal Reserve's next step is to keep interest rates steady, maybe at some point even cut interest rates, that might point to some optimism that those interest rates could go down at some point in the future, Zinkley.
All right, time will tell. We know you'll stay on it, Brian Chung. Thank you so much. All right, still ahead this hour, Russia says Ukraine just tried to assassinate Vladimir Putin in a drone attack. Ukraine says not true. So what's U.S. intelligence saying? And an organization said to be responsible for much of Europe's cocaine trade gets busted. That's next. Now let's head around the world in 80 seconds. We begin tonight in the Gaza Strip, where Palestinian health officials say an Israeli airstrike killed at least one person and injured 5 others. The strike was allegedly in retaliation for a Palestinian rocket attack at Israeli territory yesterday. Now Palestinian officials are saying that both sides have agreed to a ceasefire. Today, Iran and Syria signed a series of long-term agreements designed to boost economic ties between the two countries. The agreements address a number of different areas, including oil, agriculture, and free trade. Iran's president traveled to Syria to ink the deal. It was his first trip to the region since the Syrian civil war broke out in 2011. In Italy, authorities are calling it the largest ever coordinated hit against one of the world's most powerful crime networks. And the scope of the hit is staggering. According to Europol, more than 2,700 officers arrested 132 people in 10 different countries. Most of those arrests were made in Italy, but they also extended as far as Brazil and Panama. Europol says the organization is responsible for much of Europe's cocaine trade. Let's turn now to some explosive allegations coming out of Russia. This morning, the Kremlin said that Ukraine tried to assassinate Russian President Vladimir Putin in an overnight drone attack. Russia provided no evidence to back their claim, and top U.S. officials seemed skeptical, too. Kyiv is fiercely denying the claim, suggesting that this could be used by Russia to create yet another false pretext for a new Russian attack inside Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also suggested that the attack simply is not realistic.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapon for this. That's why we don't use it anywhere. For us, that is the deficit. We can't spend it.
For more, I'm joined by NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons. Keir.
Well, Zinkley, this played out right the way through the day today. In the early hours of the morning in Moscow, these videos began to emerge on Russian social media showing an explosion above the dome inside, or one of the domes inside the Kremlin walls. More videos appeared. There are now multiple versions of these, what appear to be 2 drones striking this building inside the Kremlin. And then the Russians, some hours later, put out a statement, a rare statement, saying that this was an assassination attempt against President Putin, accusing Ukraine of being behind this attempt, saying that its electronic defenses had taken down the drones, while Ukraine then responded very quickly, calling this a Russian trick. President Zelensky himself at a news conference addressing it, and saying that they have not tried to target President Putin and that they are trying to defend their lands, not fight on Russian soil. The U.S., the Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken himself, then also talking about it, saying that you should treat everything from Russia with a big amount of salt, but at the same time saying the U.S. hasn't been able to establish what happened here and that they had no knowledge of a potential attack by drone by Ukraine on Russia. Look, it isn't the first time that there have been assassination attempts or even assassinations inside Russia. We saw the daughter of an ally of President Putin die in a car bomb. We saw a very well-known blogger die with a bomb at a meeting that he was attending, that he was kind of the star of, if you like. And of course, over many, many years, we've seen accusations that the Kremlin and President Putin have been behind assassinations, including here in London, of a former KGB officer, including an opposition leader in Moscow, Boris Nemtsov, who was gunned down just outside the Kremlin. So, in a sense, accusations like this and attempts like this and even successful attempts at killings are not unusual. But what is unusual is for the Kremlin to put the spotlight on something like this, to say that it happened, to suggest that it was an attempt to attack the Russian leader. Some are questioning why Russia would do that. Russia saying that it is looking at some kind of retaliation. Sinclair?
Here, thanks so much. And coming up,
it definitely hurt my feelings that there was a lack of African-American donors. I didn't care if she came out purple. I just wanted to be a mom.
What's behind America's black sperm donor shortage? But first, you gotta see this. Talk about a close call. A Virginia police officer narrowly avoided being hit by a speeding car that lost control on the road. We'll get to that next. Welcome back. Let's get you caught up in 30 seconds. Police just apprehended the man suspected of killing at least one person and injuring 4 others in Atlanta. He was captured after an hours-long manhunt. We're waiting for a police press conference to start any moment. In Texas, police arrested the man suspected of killing 5 of his neighbors. His wife was also arrested for hindering apprehension of a known felon. And the Fed is at it again. It raised interest rates by 1/4 percentage point. This is the 10th hike in just over a year. In Antioch, California, there's an investigation rocking the Bay Area city. It all centers around alleged racist texts between more than a dozen police officers and allegations of police brutality. Now, one of the alleged victims is speaking out. NBC News correspondent Nyla Charles has the story.
A California man is suing police for violating his civil rights.
They slammed me on my head, so that kind of knocked me unconscious. They kicked me to wake me back up and kept on doing it over and over.
He's one of several plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit against the Antioch, California Police Department. The shocking claims come after a federal investigation into the department. The text messages allegedly shared between Antioch police officers on stakeout are crude and racist. The department serves a majority minority community. So many black people, appears to write one Antioch Police Department officer. They all look the same, an officer responds. I feel like I'm at the zoo, writes another. The text listed in a report from the district attorney. It says after the 4 suspects were arrested for murder, officers seemed to revel in the violent takedown. Texting, I field goal kicked his head. Now, Trent Allen, one of the alleged victims from that incident, is speaking out exclusively to NBC Bay Area.
After they had beat me, they was saying they was basically throwing words out like that. And I'm asking them what's going on. They telling me, shut up, you're going to find just basically disrespecting me, giving me no type of respect at all.
The report accuses more than a dozen officers of using racist and homophobic slurs, sharing racist images, and joking about using less lethal weapons on people. The messages were sent in 2020 and 2021. The plaintiff's attorney says dozens have come forward with complaints.
Most common complaint is being stopped for no reason and searched, and money's taken, and drugs are taken.
Antioch police put more than half a dozen officers on leave and says the case is being reviewed by independent investigators. Now, hundreds of cases involving the officers are being put into question.
Kind of like traumatized. It's like, who can I call for help? I can't call the police at this point. It's like they trying to kill us.
All right, Nyala Charles joins me now. So, Nyala, how exactly were these texts first discovered?
Zinkley, the district attorney's office released the text in an investigative report during an ongoing FBI probe. Now, maybe the most troubled by these allegations, the community of Antioch. The police chief is hosting listening sessions for the community so they can discuss their concerns. Zinkley?
I mean, I'm glad the police chief is taking a listening approach to this. I know the police department also responded. What exactly are they saying?
Yeah, the police chief did come out with a statement in response to the investigative report. He says, I promise to hold accountable the officers expressing racist or bigoted beliefs, bias and sensitivity, and those boasting about harming members of the community. Now, we did ask the police department and the district attorney's office for comment on that lawsuit, but they declined to comment. Zinkley?
All right, I'm sure lots of eyes will stay on this one. Nyala Charles, thank you so much. And along the southern border tonight, cities are under states of emergency ahead of a major federal policy change. In just over a week, the Biden administration is lifting Title 42. You'll remember that's the pandemic-era Trump border policy that gives the U.S. more power to expel people looking for asylum. While the change has not yet been applied, border cities and ports of entry are seeing more and more people looking to get into the United States. City leaders are saying they're getting stretched to max capacity. And meanwhile, migrants are scrambling for food and supplies if or when aid arrives. All of this is happening while many migrants still don't have shelter to sleep. While that's happening at the border across the nation, many migrants are also being sent to other cities like New York and Chicago, which don't have the same infrastructure to handle more migrants. So the key question in all of this is, what is the federal plan once Title 42 goes away? Joining us now to talk about this is NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. He's on the ground in El Paso, Texas. Gabe, thanks for being here with us. Obviously, this is about policy, but really it's about people. You've been there on the ground. You've been talking to a lot of these folks. Many are now calling this a humanitarian crisis. What have you seen today? What's it like?
Hi there, St. Clair. Well, we were also here several months ago when President Biden visited El Paso, and also before that, we were seeing many large groups come to El Paso. I can tell you, St. Clair, the numbers we're seeing right now here in this location is significantly higher than I saw several months ago. This is a church not far from the border. As you can see, there are a lot of migrants here, and this is not just this block, it's this one as well. This stretches all the way down here and really stretches for several city blocks. There are hundreds of migrants that are sleeping on the streets here each night in El Paso, and that's the reason city officials here say that this is a state of emergency. They've declared it here, they've declared it in Laredo, and also in Brownsville, Texas. We spoke with one woman from Venezuela earlier today. She had a 10-year-old daughter. She had been here for at least 10 days. She was desperate for food, for water. We saw a humanitarian aid truck pull up here just a few feet from where I was standing earlier today, and when the doors opened, there was a scramble to try and get these supplies. Many of these migrants don't know where they're headed to next. Some of them are trying to get to other places across the U.S. to potentially meet with family members. They don't know how to get there. And of course, as the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, said several days ago and has been reiterating, he's acting on Congress to try and fix this through legislative fix somehow. But he is calling this a broken immigration system. And right now here in El Paso, you can see why. Sinclair?
No, absolutely. I mean, all those people out there without shelter, honestly, it's a bit like deja vu, because you're right, Gabe, you've reported on this a lot. I think the last time we spoke, it was on this show, different scene, months ago. So to that end, is there going to be an immediate influx of migrants when the restrictions lift? What are you hearing?
Well, that is a concern from local officials, right, Sinclair? You know, we've been talking about the end of Title 42 now for quite some time. As you said, it's that pandemic-era border restriction that allowed the federal government more leeway in terms of expelling migrants due to public health concerns. Well, the concern from local officials is that because or when that is lifted, there will be more of an influx, more so than they're seeing now. The federal government, to that end, is trying to clamp down on that, trying to say, and through certain policy changes, trying to discourage this migration. It's opening up processing centers in other Central American countries. The White House is also touting a new agreement with the Mexican government that would allow U.S. authorities to deport non-Mexicans who entered this country illegally, to deport them back across the border. Still, there are certain questions about whether this might promote some sort of a bigger humanitarian crisis on the Mexican side of the border. And there's still many questions about whether migration will be deterred here anyway. So, in part of that is why the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, he's heading to the Rio Grande Valley tomorrow and Friday, defending the administration's response, but also trying to, clamp down on fears that this influx will increase when Title 42 is lifted next week. St. Clair?
Yeah, so much to watch, so many lives in limbo. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much. Now let's turn from land to the sea. At the start of this year, North Pacific gray whales began their yearly migration back home to the Arctic. Typical stuff. But along the way, many have now stopped in the San Francisco Bay for refuge, and that is not normal. See, this whale here, it's been in the bay since early February, and it's not alone. The Marine Mammal Center believes there are half a dozen of these guys in the area. And take a look. This is the route they normally take at the start of each year. They go from Baja California all the way to the Arctic. So why the roundabout route? Well, the center says many whales are showing up to the bay, malnourished and looking for sustenance. But between a lack of food there and a busy port, many experts are now concerned about the well-being of this species. So we're going to talk to one. Joining us now is wildlife expert and biologist Forrest Galante. He's also the co-founder of Fantiscus Pictures. Forrest, thank you so much for being here. So these gray whales have been following this migration route for a long time. We've heard experts say they're taking refuge at the bay, looking malnourished. Do they normally need food this far in the journey? Why is this happening?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, when you're traveling 10,000 miles, you need to eat something. And so what typically happens is the gray whales come down into Baja, Mexico and down south. And when they're in bays, they're calving and they're raising their young, and they're typically not feeding, actually. However, when they leave those bays, like in this beautiful video here, when they leave those bays, that's when they feed and get sustenance to support them on their long migration. So this stopover in the San Francisco Bay, it's really not that unusual. The gray whales are smart animals. They're seeking refuge from strong currents, violent seas, predators, all kinds of things. And they may choose not to eat when in a bay setting like that. And then hopefully we'll continue to find some food as soon as they leave.
I love that you call them strong, smart animals. I mean, so beautiful. Was that you there in the video, I think? With the whales?
Right here.
I love that. Yeah, no, I mean,
that was down. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's really beautiful. And I think a lot of folks like yourself who love the earth, who love these animals, have been thinking about the climate crisis and the role of that in some of these shifts and movements. Do you think this plays a part in what we're seeing with these whales?
It certainly could, especially the malnourished factor, because as sea surface temperatures begin to shift, what you're going to see is a shift in the food web. And that means for planktivores like these gray whales, they're going to have a new food source, or rather a food source moving around in a different way or blooming in a different way than they have historically. So fortunately, they are incredibly intelligent animals and they're quite adaptive. So hopefully they'll be able to figure it out. It's hard to say on a big picture what is specifically happening. But what we do know is these whales are actually doing better now than they historically ever have. And since the end of whaling, it's really nice to see them coming back and frequenting places like the San Francisco Bay where people can actually enjoy them.
And Forrest, I do want to zoom out a bit because this has me thinking about extinction. We've seen this with a lot of other species. I know gray whales as a whole species aren't really at risk, right? But could this new migration pattern change that at all?
Well, the pattern itself hasn't really changed. They do typically go up the coast and then cut over. So the reason being they like to feed in shallow sea areas. They will go a little bit offshore, of course, but they like to travel along the coast for safety reasons, for climatic reasons. The shift, though, is going to happen based upon that food web, as I said, and based upon what temperature they can withstand. I think the bigger concern will really be as warming of the earth occurs, we know that storms will get more violent. And if these animals aren't able to withstand those storms, that could be truly problematic.
All right. A really important analysis there, and hoping those whales stay safe. Forrest, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And still to come, Meta is warning Facebook and Instagram users that AI tools are being used to hack into user accounts. And what are 10-year-olds doing working at a McDonald's in Kentucky? That's what the U.S. government is trying to figure out. All right, here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. McDonald's is in some hot water after the Labor Department found that over 300 children were working in restaurants across the country in clear violation of child labor laws, including 2 10-year-olds working at a McDonald's in Kentucky, unpaid, preparing food, cleaning up, and even working the drive-through window as late as 2 a.m. 3-time Olympic medalist Tori Bowie is dead at the age of 32. The Mississippi-born sprinter is best known for her gold medal finish in the 4x100 relay in 2016 Games in Rio. She was found dead in a house in Florida. Police say there were no signs of foul play, but right now there are no other details. U.S. Track and Field said in a statement that they will miss Bowie and that, quote, her impact on the sport is immeasurable. Jenny Craig is closing its doors. The longtime weight loss company sent an email to its employees last night saying they're shutting down due to a lack of funding. Since its start in the 80s, Jenny Craig grew into a household name with about 500 stores across America and over 1,000 employees. Today, the FDA approved the world's first RSV vaccine for adults 60 years and older. It's made by the big pharmaceutical company GSK. Latest trials show it's 94% effective at lowering the risk of severe illness, but it's not yet ready for use. The CDC will meet in June to discuss how that will happen. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announced their new class of inductees this year, and the 13 honorees include Willie Nelson, George Michael, Chaka Khan, Sheryl Crow, Rage Against the Machine, and yes, Missy Elliott. Fun fact, Elliott is actually the first female hip-hop artist to be in the hall. In her own words, she's, quote, a true pathbreaker in a male-dominated genre. All right, well, you're watching Stay Tuned now, so obviously we got to talk about tech. And with every new technology comes those who are trying to take advantage of it. Turns out now we are already seeing how AI is being used to scam people. You may have even seen or heard examples on social media. In fact, Meta says it's seeing these bad actors using malware disguised as AI software like ChatGPT. The company says it has blocked more than 1,000 of these threats of links just in the last few months. Joining me now is Nathaniel Gleischer. He's the head of security policy at Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. Thanks so much for joining us, Nathaniel. So I just want to jump in here because some of these malware threats look pretty realistic, which is kind of concerning. So what should people know about identifying these scams, first off?
Yeah, well, I mean, today I'm here because we're sharing a whole set of reports on threats we've tracked and countered around the world. And the one that I think we want to focus on here is malware. Malware is essentially malicious software that's designed to look innocent, but actually compromises your online accounts or your devices. And what these threat actors do, what these bad guys do, is they try to trick people into installing malware themselves. And they do it by following the buzzwords of the day. In 2022, they tried to trick people by clicking on links promising them access to cryptocurrency. Today, they're trying to trick people by clicking on links that promise access to generative AI tools like ChatGPT. The good news is there's a whole series of things that people can do to keep themselves safe against techniques like this. And as part of our announcement today, we're rolling out a series of additional tools to help people protect themselves and stay safe online.
That's really important, and I appreciate that you called them bad guys. I wonder, who do you believe is responsible for keeping these bad guys in check, in account? Is it you? Is it the government?
This is a whole of society challenge. You have to have industry stepping up to the plate and doing everything we can to keep people safe. You also have to have government taking steps to counter these bad guys. And then you have to have civil society experts who can investigate and find them across the internet. What we have found is when these three teams work together, we can be particularly effective. And the good news is there are more defenders focused on this type of problem today than ever before. There are expert teams in government, in law enforcement, expert teams at the companies, and expert teams in civil society working together to stop these actors.
Nathaniel, is this something you are also seeing on other platforms like Instagram, like WhatsApp? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, it's a good question. And actually, these types of threat actors, they target indiscriminately. They will try to trick people by using email, by using text messages on a whole range of social media platforms. And the malware that they're sharing is actually aimed often at targeting people's devices. It's not even a social media account. First, they're trying to take over your phone or your laptop. That makes this a sort of internet-wide challenge. And that's why one of the really important things we do here is we share information. Whenever we take an action like we've done today, a whole series of actions, we share threat indicators with the public so people know the types of threats that are out there, but also with defender teams at other platforms around the world, the large ones and the small ones, so they can take action to protect people as well.
And this development you're telling me about seems to signal that this is a serious problem. Have you been able to figure out where this malware is coming from, and how is it that Meta hasn't gotten a hold of this yet?
So over the course of this year, we've identified and blocked about 10 separate families of malware. And the most important thing here is to move very quickly to catch these things. So as an example, one of these pieces of malware that our team identified, which we call Node Stealer, we found within 2 weeks of it being released and blocked it and shared information about it. We know that the bad actors are going to keep trying to create these types of tools. As you said, we know that they're going to try to continue to abuse technology, and they're going to do it across the entire internet. But as long as defenders are catching them quickly and we're building more and more tools for people to keep themselves safe, we can stay ahead of them. And that's the goal here.
And Nathaniel, I know the EU is rolling out some new legislation around social media rules requiring things like deepfakes, AI-generated images to be clearly labeled. Would Meta support something like that in the United States? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, we support the objectives of the DSA in Europe. One of the things that I can tell you, this isn't exactly the focus of my work because my team is focused on tracking and countering threat actors. In this space, we regularly share information with governments around the world, in the United States, in Europe, to make sure they can take action to protect people as well. In fact, as part of the report we just put out and we're here talking about today, we shared a whole range of threat indicators to make sure governments could take action as well.
All right, Nathaniel Gleischer, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, well, we've been following that breaking news out of Atlanta, and the Atlanta Police Department is delivering an update on the manhunt. Let's listen in.
As the Fulton County Sheriff, as well as our APD police chief, as well as our fire rescue chief, Chief Smith. I want to thank also our local college police offices and also our Atlanta Public Schools police office, as well as neighboring jurisdictions, the state of Georgia, and the federal government that has all chipped in on this support today. We also had strong coordination with our fire and rescue and emergency medical personnel. And last but not least, we must thank our E911 operators who spent the day fielding calls as we tracked this suspect. I am pleased to share with you that thanks to our strong partnership with Cobb County Police Department, law enforcement have taken the suspect into custody. Thanks to the highly trained police officers across our region, we are able to bring this suspect into custody without further harm. He will be charged and stand trial for his crimes. Not only did law enforcement bring this man into custody, they also kept our community safe during an enormously tense afternoon and evening. I want to thank our citizens for keeping calm, staying in place, and for providing critical information to law enforcement throughout the day. Now I'm going to turn it over to law enforcement to share an update, and I'll return to share a few additional remarks later. Now I'll turn it over to APD Police Chief Darren Shearbaum.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the members of the press for being here this evening. You all have played an important role today as we kept citizens both in Atlanta and Cobb County informed, asked for their assistance as we sought the apprehension of this very dangerous perpetrator. And thank you for returning tonight to again update those of our various communities. The mayor spoke today of a capable, competent, and brave response by the first responder network that served not only the city but this region. And I just want the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department to know, those that are in our 911 center, our first responding officers, our tactical teams, our investigators, how proud yet again I am of you of the work that you have done today on behalf of this city. And in the most dire of circumstances, you have shown what you do daily for the men and women that call this city home and those that visit here. But if you look closely on the earliest views from the crime scene, you saw not only the Atlanta Police Department responding, you saw a network of officers representing multiple agencies who have trained for this various outcome, Mr. Mayor, over and over again, that a day that this tragedy should befall the city, that we would be ready. And I stand here today to tell you that the First Responder Network was there today for their city. The Sheriff of Fulton County, Sheriff Labatt, the Georgia State Patrol, the MARTA Police Department, Georgia Tech Police Department, Georgia State University, marshals, they were all on scene quickly, executing their active shooter protocol to stop this situation. And then very shortly we were joined by the GBI, the FBI, the Secret Service, as well as United States Marshal Service as we sought to bring this person into custody. And that investigation soon showed us that this perpetrator had left the city and remained a threat elsewhere. And Sheriff Van Hooser, I just want you to know that we are a grateful city tonight for your partnership and the efforts of your law enforcement agency to take this individual into custody. And then this morning, we celebrated the bravery of Atlanta Fire Rescue, not far from here, as with their annual commemoration of Firefighters Day. And to see the paramedics and firefighters, when we did not know where the shooter was, that could easily have still been in the building, around the corner, to see our firefighters dismount their trucks and Chief Smith go into that situation. But it wasn't the first time I've seen that, Chief, because we had seen that in training over and over again. And today, when it was necessary to save lives, we were very proud to see you a strong partnership as we moved into that dangerous situation. And thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask our Deputy Chief of Criminal Investigations, Charles Hampton, to come forward to recap what has transpired today, what we have learned from the investigation, and then Chief Van Hooser will come forward to outline how his department led to the capture of this perpetrator today. Chief.
Good evening. What we do know, we know that shortly before noon, the subject entered into 1110 West Peachtree Street and went to a medical center inside the building. It was shortly thereafter that he shot our first victim, and then the first 911 call came after that. He spent about maybe 2 minutes inside the building where he then exited on foot. And what we were able to pick up on the camera network system is that he went to a Shell gas station where he commandeered a vehicle. That pickup truck was left running unattended, and he took that vehicle. We were able to, again, use video to obtain a tag and immediately place that tag into our LPR system, our license plate reader system. And so at that time, we had to really do some work to figure out where he was at. There was a series of search warrants drafted both here in Atlanta and Cobb County because we were getting information of residents and other locations that he may go to. So that was done as well. And then roughly around 12:30, we received an alert from the LPR system that he was in Cobb County. And so that, again, we were on the phone immediately with Cobb to let them know that this individual was somewhere in their jurisdiction. And as the Chief said, we'll then let Chief Van Hooser just kind of talk about what happened in his jurisdiction. But I would tell you that although we may not have known exactly where he was, as soon as we were alerted that he was out of our area of responsibility, we contacted that local jurisdiction and that coordination took place. Chief.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Van Hooser. I'm the police chief in Cobb County, just north of Atlanta. And first of all, I want to very much express our collective condolences to the families involved and know that me personally, and I'm sure collectively from all of those who were involved in today's incident, that our prayers and thoughts are with the families that have been affected by this. Of course, we saw what was going on the news. We had heard through our networks of what was going on in Atlanta when we discovered that the individual had last been identified on a flock LPR camera in our jurisdiction. Of course, we sent officers to that area and set up, not so much a perimeter, but we began to look for the vehicle. And I will be honest with you. First of all, let me apologize in advance. I have not prepared a statement. I have not had time to prepare a statement. So what I'm giving you guys is not planned, and I will probably make a few mistakes, and I'll probably forget to thank some people. But what I can tell you is this: These are massively complex investigations, and information comes in so quickly, and it is so confusing and so contradicting that we find that we are often trying to go 3 or 4 different places very quickly, each seeming to be the suspect. And so that was what was happening today. We had, it was a fairly chaotic scene. We were being called to various locations in that area about what appeared to be legitimate sightings of this individual. And there was some fear, of course, in the citizens in that area, of course. So our officers were responding to those calls. And I will say this. If you rewind the hand of time 4 years, we probably would not be where we are today right now. Technology played a huge role, but technology doesn't do any good without people who are determined to capture an individual that would do something like this. And today we saw where those two things came together in an amazing way. Nobody went home today. Everybody stayed. We have a fairly new real-time crime center by a local company named Fusus. Flock is a fairly new company. It's a local company as well. We have partnered with both of those companies, and they have brought us some amazing tools, as has the other jurisdictions in the Atlanta area. Those tools are what really got us the clues that we needed to make this successful, and the people that were getting those clues from that technology made this happen. So we had a lot of clues, enough clues from both our real-time crime center and Flock to have a pretty good instinct on the calls that were coming in. We had checked a building that we knew that he had gone into, and we had cleared that building, and we knew that that he was not in that building. That building was unoccupied. It was being built. It was very close to Truist Park and the Battery, which, of course, was very concerning to us, as that's many people would be in that location. So we were concerned about the safety of our community in general, but particularly that one. So the operators in our real-time crime center were fielding many of these calls and looking at them and trying to determine which ones seemed legitimate, which ones did not. And most of that is a little bit of gut, but it was also based on some of the things that we were seeing on the map and what made sense to the real-time operators. One real-time operator in particular saw a 911 call come in, literally said, I think this is going to be him. And it was mostly instinct, but a lot of it did have to do with where this call was coming in and where this individual was supposed to be. That real-time operator communicated with the 911 operator that was in the command center with us, and we prioritized that call on the radio. And we had some officers, both undercover and uniformed officers. I believe, if I have my facts correct, that an undercover officer was the one that originally saw and confronted this individual and was able to then have backup from uniformed officers that came in and took him into custody without incident. I would forget, and I will forget, some of the people and organizations to thank, but I can reiterate what Mayor Dickens and Chief Shearbaum said, and there's no reason to really go back into all of it, but I can tell you that it does not work without a cooperative community, a community that backs up the police, that allows the police to take risks and try to take violent people into custody. We have a very, very supportive community in Cobb County, a very supportive elected official group, and very
All right, you've been watching the press conference where that suspect has finally been taken into custody by police describing the role of technology and the importance the public and the press played. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned tonight. I'm Zinklea Samoa. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.